Kiive plugins have released 2 Fairchild compressor plugins, sampled from the personal Fairchild 660 of Martina McBride at Blackbird Studios. The Fairchild 660 is a mono-tube compressor limiter, so it's obvious that there has been done some tinkering to make the plugin suitable for stereo, and that the BB F67 is not directly based off a stereo Fairchild 670, but has been made to work like a 670 but is based on the mono 660. Still following me? For you who aren't familiar with the renowned Fairchild 660 compressor, it's an all-tube compressor limiter and has very fast attack times and slow release, with ratios going from 2:1 to 30:1. It's really designed to grab a signal and keep it there. You get 6 presets, which vary mostly in the release time. The original Fairchild 660 and 670 go for insane amounts of money. That is, if you can find one. This 670 here goes for $285,000. You can see all the tubes and hardware pretty well, even though not everything ends up in the audio chain. Both the Kiive plugins BB F66 and F67 have a pretty audible sonic signature. The plugins have a broad boost from 50 to 8500 Hz, with the biggest rise in the mid-range, and a steep roll-off below and above that. Furthermore, there's a very typical slight notch at 1200 Hz. This will make audio sound more forward, and it's also a very vinyl-friendly EQ curve. It sounds like this on this master. That overall EQ curve makes that it matches my voice pretty well. That 1200 Hz notch is something that I have to dip on my voice usually. Kiive plugins did send me these plugins to review, but they did not sponsor me or see this video before you. And while we're at it, please make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. The plugins are very nice on multiple sources. Here are drums, and let me switch between the 6 settings. Basically every setting sounds like an improvement. Here's a dynamic, sustained acoustic guitar. The sound really gets fixated and steady. But let's turn up the sidechain to let the low end breathe more. Now it's much nicer to listen to. You hear the sonic signature as well, the sparkly highs get reduced with the plugin. Now, with two plugins based off the same one hardware unit, how different are they? Well, EQ curve and harmonics are pretty much identical. The only real difference between the two is that the F66 is a few dBs softer at default, but that's gain only. Ratio is the same, but there's a difference in threshold calibration which can easily be matched. The attack and release settings between the two are also identical across the board. The sidechain, which I showed before, goes up to 500 Hz, which is really high for this purpose. It nicely removes any pumping. You can hear the plugins switching the sidechain on, especially on the F66. It's a bit less audible on the F67. There's a little gain meter display bug as well, as you can see. For some reason the lights on didn't load correctly. There's something weird going on with the output gain dial on both models. I have no change with any values above 0. I seem only to be able to reduce the signal. The kit plugin's standard gain out works as intended. I couldn't confirm if this just was a Windows 11 Cubase issue. The download of the Mac version was extremely slow. It took way too long to check. Let me know in the comments how this output gain works for you. The biggest difference between the two is that the F67 can work in standard stereo or mid-side mode, where you have access to all controls individually per channel. And there's a linked mode, where the control of the left channel will control the same dials on the right channel. But there's a quirk with switching between these modes. With default settings, when you switch between the modes, everything sounds the same, as it should. But when I dial in some compression in linked mode and then switch, the mid-side mode has a lot less level, which is weird. You should expect some differences, but not this drop in level. This means that switching between stereo and mid-side modes, after you have dialed in the compression to check which one sounds better, will be pointless due to the change in level. And this is a shame. I personally love to start in linked stereo mode to have the same amount of compression for both channels and then switch to mid-side to do little adjustments to optimize compression. And that becomes a lot harder with these level differences. There's more. On the F67, using the mix dial will result in a big drop of high frequencies. It's very audible. On both ends of the mix dial, the high end is fine, but the more you blend, the more high end you lose. That sounds like a phase issue to me. On the F66, this is not the case at all. There, the mix blend sounds fine. That means for parallel mixing, the F66 is much better suited. Other than that, I don't really see the point in having two plugins, they are basically the same. The next one is not so much a quirk, but more a result of abusing the compressor with stupid settings. When I increase input gain and use a very low threshold, you can hear the stereo image shift completely in linked mode with audio that has pronounced stereo placement. If for some reason you need this insane amount of compression, you're much better off working in mid-side mode. Like I said, I think the BB F66 and F67 could have been one plugin, but I don't know if there are any programming reasons for having two. That said, beside their quirks, these Fairchild based plugins sound really cool and will fit nicely in your audio tool shed. Go check them out.